About 30,000 people inside the stadium, including some very young fans who hope to someday play on a field like the one behind me. Those two Kenyan sand boas are now back safe and sound here at Pet Bazaar. You can take a look. Here they are. One Kenyan sand boa as well as 8 other snakes and 2 bearded dragons still missing. And it's not just along here on I-4. They're also doing it in the air with helicopters and airplanes, all because of a very busy weekend because of aggressive driving citations. Disney's Very Merry Christmas Party has officially begun here at Walt Disney World at the Magic Kingdom. This year's theme is Frozen, the #1 animated movie of all time. When the man got out of the pond, he came over here to this hose. He reached down, turned it on, walked back over to the pond and put it in. The chlorine from the hose water is what killed the fish.
Of all the new additions here at the Daytona International Speedway, one of the things that the women are most appreciative of, no surprise here, more bathrooms.
A successful launch just a few minutes ago from the Atlas V rocket. Now there is another launch that is planned for very early, around 1:20 Tuesday morning, that being a Falcon 9 rocket.
Sherry from Dowagiac wants to know the first person you ever made laugh that you remember.
I didn't know where you were going with that.
No. I caught myself.
Yeah. I was like...
And tickets for the Electric Daisy Festival are definitely not cheap. A 2-day pass is about $170. The Rolling Stones had 15 stops on their zip code tour, one of them being right here in downtown Orlando. Well, Marla, the students have been allowed back inside. The all clear was given just a little before, about 35 minutes ago at 5 o'clock. The students are allowed back inside, and this all began around 3:45 this afternoon here behind me at the Hit Library when someone reported on social media a woman inside, possibly with a gun in that library. Within 2 minutes, campus police were on scene. All the students were evacuated, and each floor was checked by the officers. The staff employees were told to stay in their offices as that search was going on. And UCF's public information officer said no one and no weapon was found, but they haven't necessarily at this point categorized this as a false alarm or even a hoax. Now, we did talk to a student who was inside when this was unfolding.
Rumors spread very easily anywhere, especially now in the social media age, but seems like no one was hurt or anything, so that's good. But it's just good to be safe. I mean, these kind of things have been happening all over the country. It's just good to see that our UCF Police Department was able to react so quickly to it and keep us safe.
It was definitely a scare for the students and the faculty involved. Fortunately, as you heard him say, it was very brief. As I mentioned, the library was open just before 5 o'clock, and everyone has been allowed back inside. Reporting live on the campus of UCF in Orange County, I'm Joel Schipper, News 13. Sandra, Mike Kennedy says his animals are not pets. He's never looked at them as pets. He has permits for all of them, and that includes the 8-foot-long king cobra that escaped from its enclosure about 2.5 weeks ago that could be in the woods behind me.
And it's taken away, it's put a negative twist on all the good work we do here.
For the first time, Michael Kennedy is going on camera talking about the king cobra that escaped from its enclosure more than 2 weeks ago off north of Apopka Vineland Road in western Orange County. Kennedy is a zoologist who has scientific collection and research permits and often finds himself taking in injured or sick animals people don't know what to do with, including venomous snakes.
Most of the animals we have here are rescues. I've picked them up for law enforcement. I've got snakes that came from Winter Park PD, Windermere Fire Department.
Recent storms created water damage in Kennedy's garage, where he houses about a dozen snakes, including other cobras, all in locked cages.
When the water got in there, it caused it to expand just enough and get soggy enough that the snake was able to, I mean, just a very small area, but it doesn't take much for a snake, to work that screen loose and came out the side.
He returned from a trip and realized the snake was gone, and that's when the search immediately began.
I emptied this building, everything, opened toolbox drawers up at the attic. I mean, hours and hours and hours, and virtually all night. And it wasn't the next day till I called it in, but as soon as I realized, man, he's not here, I got to report this, I called it in.
Because snakes are masterful at escaping, Kennedy said he had only 2 options on what to do next.
I know half a dozen snakes that people have lost, and many of them were monocle cobras that they never said a word. But I can't do that. It'd just be the wrong thing to do, and it's too important what I'm doing. I have to be straight up and legal, so I was, and I've taken a lot of heat for it.
Don't get mad at me.
In addition to the snakes, Kennedy has a leopard, as well as several alligators and crocodiles on the 5-acre property known as Dragon Ranch.
There you go, buddy.
All animals who needed a second home. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission has set up traps for the missing cobra, but knows finding a missing snake, even an 8-foot king cobra, could be next to impossible.
Of course, my primary concern is that nobody gets hurt. I mean, the chances of that animal hurting somebody are extremely remote. These woods are full of rattlesnakes, water moccasins, coral snakes. You know, he's just another snake out there. He's fast, agile. He sees you coming long before you ever see him, and he's out of your way. He just wants to stay hidden.
Now, Kennedy says the next few months may be difficult to actually finding that snake because the weather is getting much colder. It might be difficult for that snake to survive. If you do see that king cobra, you are urged not to approach it, but call 911 immediately. Reporting live in Apopka, Joel Schipper, News 13. Marla, those sprinklers have already gone on to protect those delicate ferns about 4 hours earlier than expected, all because the temperatures here in northern Volusia County are dropping so quickly.
You see they're lighter the green, they're the immature ones, and those are the ones that will freeze first.
It's an $80 million local industry that watches the thermometer by the minute and uses ice and frost as a friend, not a foe.
The neat thing about using water for freeze protection is wet ice never drops below 32 degrees. So as long as you keep applying water to it, the ice stays at 32.
David Register is the vice president of Fern Trust. His company grows and sends out ferns not only here in Central Florida, but around the world. David gave us a tour of his family's Seville fern farm just before Tuesday night's freeze. When the air temperature drops around 32 degrees, the water systems are turned on and the canopy is sprayed first.
And we'll turn it on and make a very, very thin sheet of ice all over the outside to trap all the heat of the ground coming out.
On top of the mesh.
On top of the saran cloth up there.
Here in the Fern packaging house, employees are working overtime, not only for the impending frost, but also it's one of the busiest times of year for those in the flower industry. Just a couple weeks, talking about Valentine's Day.
You can't do stuff but so much ahead, so we have to kind of cram things together and get a lot done in a little bit of time.
Ferns are wrapped, boxes are stapled. As the race for the holiday continues inside, the wait for the frost continues outside.
We're doing probably 25% of our volume for the year in a 1 to 2 week period.
And those with Fern Trust say, although it is a very stressful time of year because Valentine's Day is so close and because of the freezing temperatures, it's not all bad. The colder temperatures can kill off bugs now that could hurt crops later this summer. Reporting in Seville in northern Volusia County, Joel Schipper, News 13. The Honors College just a few hundred yards away from the Student Union, one of the busiest places on campus, which makes this incident even more surprising. A still image from surveillance video earlier this month shows a man waist deep in a meditation koi pond at UCF's Burnett Honors College. The man tore out lights, air pumps, and biofilters. An act that killed several of the pond's koi fish, each worth hundreds of dollars.
I just don't understand why somebody would want to do this.
Michael Callahan works with the Honors College and rushed to get emergency chemicals to save the remaining fish as soon as he heard about what happened.
For somebody to come and do the severe amount of damage they did is just mind-blowing to me.
When the man got out of the pond, he came over here to this hose. He reached down, turned it on, walked back over to the pond and put it in. The chlorine from the hose water is what killed the fish.
And that ran for almost 18, 20 hours of pumping water and chemicals into the pond the fish aren't used to.
After the pond, the man grabbed rocks and started throwing them and left a trail of damage behind. Students who sit and study in the area are shocked something like this would happen in the middle of the day, near the middle of campus.
So you'd think there'd be a lot of traffic, but I guess it's because it's walled off. I don't know, maybe just people pass it by, but it's very quiet.
He had the time. It wasn't a jump in quickly and get out. It was lots of time for him to mess around in the garden and do damage.
Members of the community are volunteering to restock this pond with brand new koi and pay for it. We did reach out to the UCF Police Department, who said they are not going to comment on current investigations. Reporting at UCF in Orange County, I'm Joel Schipper, News 13.